Good morning. Welcome to Zoho Meeting webinars. Today, we're going to see about how to use Zoho Meeting as your online meeting and webinar tool. Before we get started, please note that the webinar is being recorded and we will also be sharing the recording with you shortly. Now, let's see how you can interact with us today. As an attendee of the webinar, you will be in listen and view only mode. I hope my voice is clear and audible to everyone. You can also give a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you have any technical difficulty in hearing and also viewing my screen. And if you have any questions during the webinar, feel free to ask them in the Q&A option on your screen. And here we have our experts who will respond to your questions throughout the session. As an introduction about myself, this is Kavitha from Zoho Meeting team, and I will be your presenter for today's webinar. I'm an expertise in this online meeting and webinar tool and have a total experience of 3 years in this video conferencing platform. Now, let's see the agenda for today's session. I'm going to start with a brief introduction about Zoho Meeting and how should we use it. With a demonstration of the new version, I will give you a complete walkthrough of Zoho Meeting. Then, we are going to see some of the scenarios to get an overview on how exactly the module works. Followed by this, we will learn how to set up your account with your corporate branding, add users, and associate profiles. Finally, I'll wrap up the session with a roadmap to show you some of the upcoming features in online meeting and webinar solutions. Now, let's see a brief introduction about our online meeting software. What is an online meeting? Online meeting is a collaborative session with real-time audio, video, and screen sharing. Here, you can initiate or join meetings from anywhere and also collaborate effectively with the moderator controls. So, this online meeting module will be most helpful if you would like to conduct a conference or in a meeting, or else if you're getting engaged in a remote work and also provide remote clinical services to your patients. Now that we have understood how Zoho Meeting can be used as a video conferencing tool, and now we are going to see about the overview of Zoho Meeting. So this is the home screen of Zoho Meeting where you can see the Meet Now and Schedule Meeting button in order to get a quick access to your online meetings. Whenever quick decisions are needed, you can just start an instant meeting using the Meet Now option. So right now, I'm going to start an instant meeting and invite the participants in my ongoing session. So this takes you to the meeting window directly where you need not to download any application because it will start the session from the browser itself. So this is how the presenter screen of the meeting window looks like. Now, let me tell you how come a participant joins the meeting. If you'd like to invite someone on your ongoing session, you need not to go back to the meeting details page to fetch the meeting link so that you can share with the participants. Because Zoho Meeting provides an option to invite the participants by getting the join link or else send an invite right from the meeting window itself. So here you can type in their email address. So the email invite will be triggered automatically to them. So then they will be able to join your ongoing meeting. So here I have already copied the link and I'm going to join as a participant for the same meeting. As you see, the moment when I try to join as a participant, it doesn't ask me to download any application because it is going to join the session from the browser itself. So here comes the participants launch page where they need to choose the audio and the video sources of their choice from the more option. Moreover, they will also get an option to join the session from the phone audio. So what is a phone audio? It is actually a tool which allows them to dial in through their phone using the dial-in numbers given for the respective countries along with the access code. But right now, I'm going to go for the computer audio and click on the done button. This is how the participant screen looks like. Now, back to the presenter screen, on the bottom menu bar, you will be provided with a list of tools and tabs with its respective features. So here comes the participants tab, which will help you to get the list of all the participants, those who have joined your session. So from the more actions provided next to each listing, you can see certain options and controls. So let's see one by one. First, the one is the rename option. So using the rename option, you can replace their official names with their nicknames. So the second option is one of the moderator controls that is provided within the session. The give control option will be enabled when you do a screen share. So it is nothing but a remote access by providing your mouse and keyboard control to your participants. All right. Now we go for the third one, which is removing the participants from the session when they are no longer part of your discussion. We also have an option of making the participant as a co-host within the session itself. So if you're having any other work or have to jump on to another meeting, you can quickly make any of your participant as a co-host within the session itself. Now, coming to the mute icon, you can use the individual mute icon provided next to each participant, or else the mute all button to mute them in a single click. You also have a search, sort, or the filter icon to easily categorize your attendees. Now, coming to the meeting title, if you have started an instant meeting, the session will be titled after your name. Here you can make use of the edit icon to change the meeting title as per your requirement. Right. So now we move on to the next tab, chat. So here you can have a collaborative communication among the participants using this public chat. And in order to enhance the ease of access, we have actually provided a tab view to easily navigate the chat, notes, and the polls from the participants tab itself. Now, coming back to the chat option, the participants also have an option of chatting with the presenter as well as with the other participants. Moreover, the meeting chat provided here is actually powered by Zoho Click. So through this, you can send out images, share files or documents using this attachment icon. And if you're muted during the meeting to avoid any interruption, here you can make use of the microphone icon to send out voice messages through the chat itself. Now, let's step on to the next tab, Notes. We have this built-in notes feature that is actually powered by Zoho Notebook. So using this, you can take down any important lectures and points that has been discussed during your online meeting session. So once you have just type in any notes, you will have an option to save it. Now, let's move on to the last option, which is polls. Similar to webinar, we have introduced this polls in online meeting module through which you can conduct a quick survey during the meeting or in your conference. So here, as a presenter, you can create set of questions, surveys, opinions using this poll option where the participants will be able to respond to it. So now let me show you a poll that I have already created. So when a poll has been started, there will be a pop-up on the participant screen in order to respond to the poll. So they will have a pop-up like this. So once they have responded, the results will be instantly recorded on the presenter screen. Now, let's move on to sharing. So here comes the sharing option. Screen sharing is an essential part of collaborating during your online meeting. So anyone in a meeting can share their screen with other participants. Here we have entire screen, application, or a Chrome tab sharing. So the Chrome tab sharing will have a preview option, so which will show you which tab that you would like to share. So depending upon that, you can select the tab only that you want to share. Similarly, the participants will also have an option to share their screen with other participants and the presenter. So here comes the participant screen. They will also have the screen sharing option provided on their window. Now, in addition to the screen sharing, we have also come up with a whiteboard option in online meeting module. This is actually a visual collaboration tool which helps you when you are in a remote work or in a conference. So let's say if you're explaining a tedious application through a demo, you can use this whiteboard to design about the workflow, about the application that you're explaining. And moreover, the interesting part is, as you see, the participants will also be able to collaborate on the whiteboard shared by the presenter. So this eventually make your participants to easily understand about the product that you're explaining. Now let's close this and now we learn about the reactions and raise hand. The purpose of these features is to make the session to more interactive and engaging. The participants and the presenter can now raise their hands in order to clarify their concerns. And additionally, they can also use the live reactions to react when someone is speaking during the session. And as the presenter, you will have an option of checking about the live count on the number of raised hands using the icon down below. Now, let's move on to more actions provided. So from the more actions, you can easily change the settings of your current meeting and use the other moderator controls provided within the session. So coming to the moderator control, we have already seen a moderator control from the participants tab, that is give control option. The other one we are going to see here is lock meeting. So from the name itself, we can derive the definition. In order to conduct a secure online meeting and to minimize the interruptions, you can make use of this lock meeting feature. So through this, you can make your meetings more confidential in order to keep them secure from your unexpected attendees. Here, you will be notified when someone tries to enter your meeting, so you can let them in only if you want to. Right now, I'm going to show you a sample on how exactly this lock meeting feature is going to work. So here you can see the meeting is currently locked, and now I'm going to join as another participant for the same meeting. So here I'm going to paste the join link and give a different name right now. And here comes the page stating that the meeting is locked and waiting for an approval. Now, when you come back to the presenter screen, the presenter will have a pop-up in order to accept or reject the entry. So the participants will not be able to join the session even though if they have the join link already. So once the participant get approval from the presenter, then they can join the session. So you can use this lock meeting option as a waiting room concept for your meeting. Now, let's move on to the recording option. You can record all your meetings to watch them online later, and also you can share it with the members who couldn't attend your meeting. And here, when you start recording the session, the participants will be notified with a recording in progress message due to privacy reasons. And moreover, I have enabled auto recording functionality for my meeting, so the session starts to record automatically without my intervention. And here we have introduced an option to pause and resume the recording if you don't want to record any part of your session. Now, let's jump on to virtual background. So using the virtual background, you can easily change the background or disable the same in your ongoing session. So we have also now introduced an option to upload custom images of your choice and apply them as a background during your online meeting. Now, before we step on to the picture-in-picture option, I'm going to collate this feature based on a scenario. So here comes the scenario. Here we have a presenter who got stuck with a meeting and another important work to do. So what will the presenter do now? In this situation, Zoho Meeting provides this picture-in-picture option where the video feeds and the controls will be floated on any application or browser if you move away from the meeting. So it will have an option to mute or unmute the audio, video, and also have an option to end the meeting in this mode itself. So this provides a floating window that can be dragged to any corner so that you can stay attentive to the meeting while engaged with any other work on some other site. Now, let's close this and come back to the more actions provided. So here we have two different tools that helps you within the meeting window without moving away from the session. Now we are going to learn about that. The first one we are going to see is network performance. So this network tool will helps you to calculate the performance of your network in your ongoing session itself. And moreover, we also have the audio and video settings provided through which you can easily change the devices of audio and video from the current session itself. So without ending the meeting, you can modify the devices from the session itself. Now, let's move on to layouts. So we have multiple layouts features supported through which you can see the video feeds of your other participants in gallery view, active speaker, and also in the sidebar. And here are the other preferences listed in the more actions, which can be enabled or disabled according to your choice. And here we have an exit button. So once you are done with the meeting, you can click on the exit button to end the meeting for all of your participants.
The recording has been stopped. For joining, goodbye.
All right. So as of now, we saw on how to conduct an online meeting. So now we are going to learn a few things in Zoho Meeting based on scenarios. So here comes the scenario 2. Imagine we have a business HR who had conducted a meeting with his colleagues and looking for a way to access the notes taken down during the session. So here, Zoho Meeting provides an option to collect the notes at the session summary itself. Let me tell you how. At the end of every meeting, the chat conversation done during the session can be downloaded, and you can also view the notes that has been taken down during your session. So instead of searching for these details, you can easily get it access to from the session summary itself. Now, let's go for scenario 3. So here, a product manager wants to schedule a meeting with his colleague and his product client. So till now, we have seen how we are going to start an instant meeting without scheduling it. But right now we are going to learn how to just schedule an upcoming meeting in advance. So for this, you need to access the meeting site and where you need to click on the schedule button. So this will take you to the scheduling page where you need to give a suitable topic for your meeting and also a detailed description here in the agenda. Once it is provided, you need to provide the date, time, and the duration on how long the meeting will be hosted. Coming to the host field, by default, you will be the presenter of the meetings that you're scheduled. So this is the presenter email address, which is automatically getting popped up. But if you want to assign the presenter role to someone else, you can go for choosing your organization users as a co-host from the drop-down option. And now let's switch on to participant field. So the participant field will have an internal integration with Zoho contacts where you can import your primary and secondary contacts in your Zoho contact portal. So this is the Zoho contact portal, which is already integrated in the participant field. So it will have an import option where you will have an option of importing a large number of your contacts through Google, Outlook, and even from a sheet. So once it is uploaded, it will be getting listed on the contact field over here. And whenever you start typing in the participant name, you need not to enter the email address completely, where it will provide you an auto suggestion and you need to pick them up. And whenever the meeting is scheduled, these listed participants will receive an invitation email along with a join button in it. And the email invitations you sent out to your participants will have an RSVP section. So through this, you can know how many participants will be joining a meeting before you actually begin it. This is how a sample email invite looks like. It will have an RSVP section at the top. So based upon the options they choose, you will be getting a response emails on them. So for example, if they are clicking or accepting the meeting, you will be getting a response email stating that the participant has accepted your invitation. All right. So now we move on to scenario 4. So here comes the scenario where we have a managing director of a company who wants to discuss about the work progress on each and every month with his employees. So this is not going to be a normal meeting, is it right? Because he's going to schedule an upcoming meeting on every month. So for that, you need not to create individually every meeting on every month. So on that case, Zoho Meeting provides an option to create the recurring meeting from more options. You need to select the frequency of the meeting type, which has to be a daily, weekly, or a monthly meeting. So here you need to specify when and how the meeting should repeat and when it should end. So this will schedule the events and recurrences with the same link for the entire series. So the participants can use the same link to join the session on each and every month. Now let's move on to co-host. So we have already seen a co-host option to make any participant as a co-host within the session. Now, what about this option? This option will allow you to assign the co-host before you start the meeting. So through this, you can add your organization users to join the meeting as a co-host on your absence. So they have most of the controls just like the presenter of the meeting. If you're not available that day or not having an access to your laptop, the co-host can start the meeting on your stead. Besides, you can also set reminders like how long before the reminder email has to be sent. So through this, you can make sure that everybody makes it to your meeting on time before it starts. Now, let me show you how it actually works. So you have given all the details while scheduling the meeting. So when it is done, you need to click on the schedule button, which will take you to the meeting details page. Here you can see the complete details about the presenter, topic of the meeting, and also the invited participants from here. Now, let me walk you through what are all the three different ways for a participant to join the meeting. If you don't remember the email address of a participant while scheduling any meeting, you can just simply copy the meeting ID and the password and send it to your participants to join the session from meet.zoho.com. Now, the second way is actually a simplest way where you can simply copy the link or the invitation and send it from your personal email or messaging apps. For security reasons, now all the meetings you schedule will be password protected. So here you can see there is a password. This will be auto-filled and cloaked on the join link URL. So they need not to enter it manually whenever they are trying to join the meeting. Now we go for the third way, which is only for the invitees who can see the join meeting button sent along with the meeting invite. Now, coming back to the details page, here on the right side, you can see the edit button. where you can reschedule the meeting to postpone the session or do any modifications like inviting more participants as well. Or unfortunately, if you're not available throughout the day to conduct the scheduled meeting, you can also go for canceling the meeting using the cancel option. And now let me walk you through about how the events will be added to your calendars. So by default, all the meetings you schedule will be automatically saved on your email calendar. So let's say if you are a Gmail user, it will be added on your Google Calendar. If you are an Outlook user, it will be added on your Outlook Calendar. If you are a Zoho Mail user, it will be added on your Zoho Calendar. But what if you are using Windows or Mac Calendar? On that case, you need to go for the ICS file from the Add to Calendar option. So this will download an ICS file where you need to manually import that file to your preferable calendars. Now, let's talk about an interesting feature that is about embed widget. So what is embed widget? If you're having a website or a portal, you can simply embed the join link URL as a widget using this iframe code provided. So this is actually the iframe for the join meeting URL. So once it is embedded onto your site, anyone can join your ongoing meeting by simply entering their email address. So this is all about how you schedule an upcoming meeting in advance. So once it is done, you can either start the meeting from the meeting portal using the start meeting button. If not, you can use the presenter invite that you have received whenever the meeting is scheduled. So this is how you schedule a meeting in Zoho Meeting. Now we go for the last scenario. Some of you would like to want the previous meeting to be conducted again. For this, you need not to create a new one by filling the details all over again. To achieve this, we have provided a repeat option in the Meetings tab. You need to access the past session and where you will get a repeat option from the More Actions. So this will clone your past meeting to make this happen in the future. Not only an option to repeat the meeting, you can also retrieve the chat conversations, notes, polls, and the whiteboard from the past sessions itself. So instead of searching for the details, you can easily access it from the past session itself. And in addition to this, you can also join the meeting if you have been invited by any organization user. If your friend belongs to another organization, if he has invited you for a meeting, you can quickly access the upcoming session here and select invite meetings from the drop down. It will have a join button, so where you can join the meeting directly from your Zoho meeting account. So this will help you to save the time instead of searching for the join link from your inbox and from your calendar. And moreover, we have come up with a revamped view of the meeting listing page, which will help you to enhance the mode of access. For example, if you'd like to search for any meeting, you can go for the search option and sort the meeting based on title, date, as well as the date range. All right. So now it's time for some Q&As. Please use the Q&A tab to ask your questions, and we have a dedicated person here who will answer all your queries. So currently we saw about how to conduct the meeting and how to schedule the session in advance. So please do let us know if you have any questions about it. And in the meantime, we will move on to the next topic on how to schedule the webinars. So before we get on to this, let's have a brief introduction about our webinar software. What is webinar? It is an online training session where you can virtually present your screen in presence of your co-organizers and your attendees. Since it is a real-time session, you can keep your attendees engaged by launching the polls, answering Q&A, playing videos, presenting slides, and documents. So, using our webinar tool, you can achieve all the above features to conduct a webcasting, online events, workshop, or a training session. For example, if you're giving a product demo or a review about your application, this tool will be most useful for you. Now, let's see in action. We're going to see about the overview of our webinar module. So moving back to the homepage of Zoho Meeting, now click on the Webinars tab. It will provide you the list of your upcoming webinars and also the past webinars that you have conducted earlier. Now, let me tell you about how to create webinars using Zoho Meeting. So when you click on the schedule button at the top, it will take you to the scheduling page where you can now design your webinar planning in a step-by-step process. The first step is scheduling, where you need to give a suitable topic for your webinar and also the brief explanation of the major points that you will cover in the description. Now here you need to choose the date, time, and the duration on how long the webinar has to be organized. Now, we have introduced the clone webinar option through which you can repeat your past webinar without filling the details all over again. So all you need to do is you need to choose the record that has to be cloned so that the details of the past webinar will be automatically applied to your current webinar. So on doing this clone webinar option, you can completely avoid redoing your work. Now, let's jump on to recurring webinar. Here we have a recurring webinar option to make this webinar session happen on multiple occurrences. So unlike meeting, here you can have a registration type option, which will help you to decide whether you need a single registration for a series of webinar or an individual registration for a recurring webinar. So once done with the first step, here you can click on the next option. Now, let's talk about adding co-organizers to your webinar. While hosting a webinar, you can lighten your load by adding co-organizers to your session. So you can add as many co-organizers to your webinar and they need not to have a Zoho Meeting account for it. Now let me show you how to add a co-organizer. So you need to provide their email address here and their name. Once it is done, they will get added over here and they will also be receiving an invitation email like this. They will have a join webinar button through which they can join the webinar at the scheduled time. Now, let's discuss about what a co-organizer can do. The co-organizer can co-host the presentation. They can also answer the questions from your attendees. They can launch polls, record webinar, and also make an attendee to speak during the session. So here, you will find a skip and finish button to step into the final process, or else you can go for the next option to add the further details. So here I'm going to click on skip and finish, which will take you to the webinar details page. So here you can see the complete details about who is the organizer of the webinar and the description and also the other details what you have seen while scheduling the webinar. So these details can also be added while scheduling the session, or else you can do enough customization whenever you want from the webinar details page. So you can take enough amount of your time and do the customization whenever you want. Right. So now let me walk you through the registration setup. Whenever you create any webinar, it provides you a unique registration link from the share option. So here comes the share option, which will have the copy webinar link option. And coming to the registration setup, we have two different types of setup. One is with and another one is without registration. So what is with registration? Without the registration, the attendees will not be able to join the webinar. So that is called with registration. Now, what is without registration? So without registration is nothing but you can make the attendees to join the webinar directly without having any registration process. All right. So now let me show you a live example on how these two setups will work. You need to copy the same webinar link and now we are in the with setup. So it will take them to the registration launch page. So this is how it looks like, where they need to enter their details in the forms. And once they have registered, they will be taken to the landing page. And this is how it looks like. So the registrants can join the webinar on this page using the join webinar button, or else they can go for the confirmation email which they have received during the webinar. So it will have a join webinar button here. So at the scheduled time, they will need to click on the join webinar option to jump onto your session. Now, let's come back to the details page. And now we are going to see about how the organizers will keep a track of it. So you will get so many number of registrations and you need to have a track whomsoever has registered for your webinar. And also you might need to check about the attendees, the registrants details, those who have ever registered for your webinar. On that case, you need to access the details page and at the top, you will get the total count of the registrations. So there is only one count which is registered, who has been registered for this current webinar. And you need to click on the registrant name here and you will have an option to review the registrants right from this page. If you have any last minute change, if you don't want that registrant to attend your webinar, you can cancel that registration at any time. And before you jump onto the webinar, if you'd like to get the complete list on a CSV file, you can export your registrants list using the export option. All right. So as of now, we have seen how the registration process is working. Now we are going to see how without registration looks like. So when you switch on to the toggle of without registration, you need to copy the same webinar link from here. And when you share it with your attendees, they will get this page and where they will get a join webinar button with only name and email address option. So without completing the registration process, they can give this detail simply and they can jump onto the session without waiting for the confirmation email. So this is how you need to set up the registration process for your webinar. Right. So now we are going to see some of the features in Zoho Webinar based on scenarios. So here comes the scenario one. A sports equipment manufacturing company has organized a webinar to launch their new product. And for marketing purposes, the product marketer of this company is looking for a way to find the registrants where exactly they are coming from. To achieve this, Zoho Webinar provides you a feature called source tracking. Let me tell you how to customize the source tracking option. So from the details page, when you scroll down to the bottom, you will have a source tracking option at the bottom here. For this, you need to add a source. For example, if your source name is Facebook, you need to enter the name here for the respective registration. So instead of copying the webinar link from the share option, you need to copy the webinar link from the Facebook option. So this link should be pasted on your Facebook page where you will be getting a live count on the number of visitors and the registrants right from here. So as you see, I have already given two types of sources. One is LinkedIn and Twitter, where I am able to see the number of visitors and also the registrants count right from this page. So this feature is going to provide you a valuable information about where your registrants are coming from and finally helps you in the business growth. Now, let's move on to scenario two. So in this scenario, you're going to learn how to customize the email templates for the different emails sent to your registrants and attendees. Now, we move on to the email section at the top. So where you can now customize the email sent to your audience during the entire course of your webinar. So where you need to click on the customize email option here, which will take you to the email customization page. And this is how it looks like. So here you need to choose which type of webinar email that you want to customize the emails for. For example, if you want to customize the follow-up template, you need to click on that option and where you will have the insert HTML or plain text option. If you don't want to create a template on your own, you can simply go for the predefined templates that we provide at the bottom. So for an instance, let me show you a sample email invite which I have customized. So this is how it looks like. So similarly, you can customize it with your own branding by uploading your company logo, adding company profiles, where you can let them to know about your organization. And also you can attach the documents if you want to send it to your attendees. So let's say if you're conducting a workshop or a training, you can just send out a certificate once the session is over. So while customizing the email, you can also configure the reminder emails like first reminder, second, and also the third reminder option. You will have a configure button and here you need to decide how long before the reminder email has to be sent. So through this, you can make sure that every attendee make it to your webinar on time before it starts. Now we move on to scenario 3. Some of you would like to include the recording of the webinar to be sent out to your absentees and attendees post your session. So for this, you need not to run a separate campaign by including the recording link and doing it all over by yourself. Because Zoho Webinar allows you to set up the recording link in the follow-up email itself. Now coming back to the email section, you will have a configure button next to the follow-up template. So this will allow you to click on the include recording option and select how long after the thank you email has to be sent. Now, you need to ensure that whether the customized template has been chosen for the thank you email and also the recording link merge field has been included inside the template or not. You will have a preview option from the edit icon. So the edit icon will take you to the customization page again and where you will have an option of selecting the use button from the thank you template so that the customized template has been chosen for the current webinar. And now Using the preview option, you will have an option of having the templates in detail and where you can easily check whether the recording link has been embedded or not. From the preview, you will also have an option of cloning the template that you have already created. All right. So now we move on to scenario 4. In this scenario, you're going to learn how to set up the restrictions for your registrations. So when it comes to with registration, any number of people can register for your webinar. So we have come up with the new features to restrict the registrations based on business email address, domain, and the country. So from the registration setup, you will have an advanced settings option. You will get the lot of restrictions provided based on the business email address, domain, and the country. For example, if you want the registrations to come only from United States or Canada, you can give this option over here. Similarly, you can also go for blocking the registrations from certain countries. Also, you can set up the limitations based on the number of registrations. So once the webinar has reached the specified count, it will not further allow any registrations. And moreover, we have come up with avoiding the spam registrations for your webinar. So here you will have an option of allow access to join only from email, so that the registrants will not get an option to join the session from the landing page. So here comes the landing page, which will have a join webinar option. So instead of joining the webinar from here, you're going to restrict them to join the session only from confirmation email. Now we move on to the fifth scenario. So in this scenario, you will learn how to keep your attendees engaged during the session and also make your attendees to take action right after your webinar. So how you will make your attendees to be engaged in your ongoing session? Because we have two different types of engagement. One is polls and another one is session materials. So where we will provide three different types of polls. One is single choice, multiple choice, and another one is star rating. You will have an option of including your opinions and also ask them to provide ratings and feedbacks for your session. So not only an option to add a poll, you will also have an option of including the share materials. So here I have already uploaded some in my library. So where I need to just easily select them up. So it will be added over here. So what is a session material here? It is nothing but you can upload the PDF, PPT slides and videos in the session material and present them during the webinar. Now we move on to an important feature, that is making the attendees to be engaged after the session. So here you have a post-webinar redirection feature through which you can direct your attendees to your website at the end of your webinar to encourage them to sign up for your product or show them about your offers and also provide ratings and feedbacks for your session. For example, if you're having a survey link separately, you can enable this option and enter the URL here. So I'm going to just enter a URL here so that once the session is over, they will be taken to this respective site. So this is all about how you do the customization. So the final thing left out is promotion of a webinar. So now we step on to the last stage on how to promote your webinar. So here comes the copy webinar link option that can be sent to your target audience via email, social media, or other messaging apps. If you have a blog or a website, you can also simply drive the webinar registrations by embedding the registration form on your web pages and also in your blogs. So the people who visits your page will know about your webinar and they will register for it. Moreover, you can also promote the webinar on your websites, or else you can also go for the Zoho campaigns too. So what is a Zoho campaign? We have an integration with Zoho webinar with Zoho campaigns, which will help you to send out an email campaign to your lead or a contact where you can engage them before and after your webinar. And also, instead of moving away from the tool, we have provided a Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter profile right from here, where you can share your webinar in this social media profiles. All right. So now we are going to see how to launch the webinar. Once you have done the promotion and the customization, you will find a start button here. If you click on the start button, you will be taken to the webinar launch page. So here in this launch page, you can decide whether you're going to launch the webinar from your browser or else from the desktop app. The advantage of launching the session from the desktop app provides you a video feed and also the webinar control tools in a floating window. But right now, I'm going to show you how to start the session from the browser itself. So this will take you to the preview option where you need to choose the devices that has been connected to your system. Similar to meeting, you will also have the phone audio option here. And here you will have the devices that has been connected to your machine. So once done with the source selection, you need to click on proceed. So this is how the organizer window looks like. Now let me tell you how the attendee joins the webinar after they registers the session. So here I have already registered for this webinar and I'm going to click on the join option. And they need not to download any application. They can join the session from the browser itself. So they will have a pop-up in order to join the session. And this is how an attendee screen looks like. Now coming back to the organizer window, though you have started the webinar, you will still get to have a practice session with your co-organizers before you actually begin it. As you see, there is a start broadcast button at the bottom. So which means you're currently in the practice session mode. Until you click on this button, attendees will not be able to hear or see the audio, video, and screen. So this can be used as a communication among yourselves. And until you click on this button, attendees will have a page stating that waiting for the webinar to broadcast. And once you're ready to present, you can click on the start broadcast button. And now the webinar will be broadcasted to all of your attendees. So now they will be able to view the video feed of the organizer. Now, back to the organizer window, you will have the specialized tools and tabs at the bottom. So the attendees tab will have the list of the attendees, those who have joined the session. From the more actions provided next to each and every attendee, you will have the certain options and controls. And by default, the attendees joining the webinar will be in muted state. But you can make any attendee to communicate during the session by sharing the screen, showing the webcam, and also the talking during the session. On doing this, it will make your session to be more interactive and also be engaging. And besides, attendees can also raise their hands in case if they need any clarification during the webinar. So once they have raised their hands, there will be a hand icon next to the attendee who has actually used this. So based upon that, you can give any type of control to them. So they will be able to clarify their concerns. And you can also make any attendee as a co-organizer in your ongoing session itself. And moreover, you can also remove any attendee from the session when they are no longer part of your webinar. Here, you will also have search, sort, and filter icon, which will help you to easily categorize the attendees who have raised their hands and have been allowed to talk during the webinar. Now, let's switch on to Q&A. The webinar attendees can ask any questions throughout the session using the Q&A tab. So in case if they have any questions to be clarified, they can simply use the Q&A tab provided on the screen to ask any questions from their end. And moreover, they will also have an option of asking the questions anonymously. So they will have an ask anonymously toggle, and that we need to enable it and ask that question so that the name will not be populated on the organizer window. The organizer can either answer the question privately or publicly. And if they have bulk volume of questions to be answered, you can go for a predefined templates that we provide over here. And as an organizer, you can also send useful links, text, or email address to your attendees throughout the session. So this is actually a one-way communication of broadcasting a message. If they need any clarification, they can use the Q&A tab to ask any questions. And here you can now assign your questions to your other co-organizers in order to simplify the answering process. Here you can also decline the questions if you find it unnecessary to your session. And you can also set priority like high, medium, or low, where you can make the answering process in priority. Now let's step on to polls. In order to get a valuable insights from your audience, you can either create instant polls using the add poll option, or else you can go for launching the poll using the start poll option. So once a poll has been launched, there will be a pop-up on the attendee window in order to respond to it. So once they have responded, the results will be instantly generated on the organizer window. Now, let's move on to more actions. So from the more actions, you can easily change the settings of your current webinar. Here we have the recording option where you can record the webinar and send it to anyone who couldn't attend your session. And if you're organizing the webinar as a sales group, you can share the webinar recording as a product demo or helpful video for new users. We also have auto recording functionality and also have an option of pause and resume the recording whenever you want. Coming to the virtual background, you can select the custom images of your choice to apply them as a background in your online webinar. So here I have already uploaded a custom background here. And also I'm going to apply the effects to my video feed to lighten up my face. Now let's learn about the picture in picture. Similar to meeting, we have the picture in picture mode where the video feeds and the webinar control tools of the unmute option and the mute option will be carried away to the window that you are going. And you will also have an option of end the webinar in this mode itself. Now, coming back to the webinar window, now we are going to learn about the connectivity option. So network performance will allow you to calculate the connectivity of your network, and you can also check the other optimizations taking place in your account. Now, before we jump on to the next option, we are going to see a scenario. So till now we have seen how to broadcast the webinar within the application. But what if you want to have a real-time engagement on your session? So instead of broadcasting the webinar within the webinar tool, you're going to go for the live streaming option on YouTube. We are providing a live streaming option on your YouTube channel, which will help you to broadcast and maximize the audience in your ongoing session. So we have a live on YouTube button here, which will help you to select the account in which YouTube channel that you're going to broadcast your webinar. Now, moving on to the audio and video settings provided through which you can easily change the devices in your current webinar itself. So without ending the webinar, you will also have an option of changing the devices from this session itself. Similar to meeting, here we have the layouts feature to view the video feeds of your other co-organizers in sidebar and gallery view. Now, we are going to learn about the visual feedback through live reactions. So we have already seen the polls option where you can create the polls to get a feedback from your attendees. But right now we are going to learn how to get a visual feedback. So it is nothing about the live reactions provided on the attendee screen. So the attendees can also raise their hands and also react when someone is speaking during the webinar. So through this, you can easily check their reactions when you specifically provide a demo or a speech. Now we are back to the organizer screen, and now we are going to learn about the screen sharing. Using the start sharing option, you can deliver the presentation and demo about the topic you're organizing. To share your screen, you can go for the entire screen share window or a Chrome tab sharing. Or if you'd like to share only a PDF or play an introductory video before you start the webinar, you can just go for the share material. So instead of sharing the complete file or the complete screen, you can go only for sharing the PDF documents. So here I have already uploaded some from the details page itself. So I will have a share now button here. So once the video is popped up, you need to click on the play video option and where the audio will be heard by the attendees.
Oh, I see. You're not afraid of the dark, but you're afraid of the monsters in the dark, hmm? Well, now.
So once you're done with the playing the video, you can go for pausing it and also have an option to end the video here. So this is all about how you engage the attendees during the webinar. So once you're done with the webinar, you can click on the end webinar button to end the session for all of your attendees. And as discussed earlier, the attendees will be redirected to the site as per the URL mentioned on the post webinar redirection. So this is the URL that I have already given in the post direction site. So they have been taken to this respective website. Now, coming back to the Zoho Meeting site, and we have recently introduced an analytical report for online meeting, and let's see about this. So once the meeting or a webinar session gets over, you can get a detailed analytical view of the number of sessions conducted, duration, and the complete performance report of your participants. The current dashboard here gives you a detailed chart explaining about the number of sessions conducted as per the respective date. Here, you can also sort the report based on meeting host and also when the meeting was conducted. Here from the session history, you will get the total number of the participants joined the session and also helps you to calculate the level of dedication towards the meeting. So here comes the dedication report here, which will help you to calculate how long they have been in the session. You will also be able to track the devices which they have used to join the meeting or a webinar session. If you want to access the report in offline, you can also either download the report as XLS or CSV file. Similarly, you can also get the reports for the webinars that you have conducted. All right, now we step on to the recordings tab. So as of now, we saw on how to host and schedule the meetings and webinar session. So now we are going to learn how to revisit the topic that we have discussed during the session. So here we are at the recordings tab where you can see the list of all the session recordings of your meetings and webinars separately. Here you can replay any recordings online using the play option and also share the recording link with the members who couldn't make it to your session. Here we have an accessibility permission for the recording, which will help you to disable the public access few days after sharing the link. So here you can decide whether you want to share the recording link with no one, anyone, or anyone in your organization. Now, coming to offline access, if you'd like to download the recording, you can make use of the download button to save it as a MP4 format for offline use. And also, we have come up with the search, sort, and the filter option provided here, where you can bulk select the recordings here, which will help you to eventually delete the recordings in mass. All right. So here we are in this slide. So currently we saw about how to initiate the sessions from web browsers. So as you have already seen, I have started the webinar from the Chrome browser and I have joined as a participant from the Chrome browser. But what if you don't have a laptop or a desktop? So we are going to learn about what are all the other ways of joining the session. Zoho Meeting has iOS and Android app to get connected remotely when you don't have an access to a laptop or a desktop. So you can use this Zoho Meeting mobile applications to hold meetings, attend live webinars, participate in this pool, make video calls, and much more. So all this can be done from the Zoho Meeting mobile application. And now let's see how you can set up your Zoho Meeting account and customize it as per your requirement. So here we are stepping on to the last tab, settings. So under the personal settings, you will get an option of setting up the local information such as the time zone of your location and the time format to make it as a default option for the future meetings and webinars that you schedule. And moreover, we provide multi-language support system, which is an essential part to avoid the language barriers. So below that, you can see an option of syncing the meetings and webinars to your Google Calendar. If you have a Gmail account on enabling this option, it will help you to select the account in which you want to have the meetings and webinars to be synced. So let's say if you're an Outlook user, the events will be added only to your Outlook calendar. But you want to add the event to your personalized Gmail account, this option will be most useful for you. So below that, you can see the other settings that can be enabled or disabled according to your choice. Because it is actually a user-based setting, which will be available to all the users in your organization. Now, let's go for the organization setup. So the options provided under organization will be a admin user setting, which will be available only to the administrator. So he or she will be able to decide the setting on his own. Now, here we are to the co-branding setup, which will help you to promote your brand by adding your company name and logo to the email headers of invitations, reminders, and registration forms. So for example, let me show you how come the registration page will looks like. So it will have the logo displayed at the left side. So similarly, it will be displayed on the confirmation emails like this. Now, coming back to the organization setup, we have recently introduced the recording settings through which you can decide and set up the layouts of other recording options provided on your session. And we also have the custom domain portal where you can have a unique branded name on the URL that identifies your website. And here comes the user management, which will help you to add all the users and their respective profiles. For example, if any user who recently belongs to your organization, you can add them up here. And if you have multiple users to be added, you can also toggle the switch over here to add multiple users in a single shot. And moreover, through this tab, you can designate the roles of each users as well in order to maintain their organization hierarchy. So we have super admin, administrator, and a member profile where you will have an option to edit and delete them accordingly. Now, let's move on to departments. This is a newly released feature which will help you to categorize your entire organization into small groups. So this will help you to increase the ease of managing the users. Here you can create the department on your own. So once a department has been created, you can add any number of people to any number of departments. Now, let's move on to email configuration. So the email configuration is specifically designed only for the webinar module, where you can add the reply to email address to which the registrants can reply to clarify their concerns. So this email address can be of a team, department, or members in your organization who can answer the queries instantly. So this makes the process simple by handing over the job to your team members. Now let's move on to the security. So the security tab contains three different types of privacy settings. So the first one we are going to see is how to anonymize all the personal data, such as name, email address, IP address, and other registration related information. We also have an action log viewer, which will help you to see the list of activities performed by the users and the date when it was performed. All right. So now we move on to the last one, which is data cleanup. We have recently introduced the data cleanup, through which you can do a periodical removal of your older information that is about your analytical report, recordings, and other activities taken place in your account. Now, let's move on to subscriptions. Here you will have a current subscription details of your Zoho Meeting account where you can manage the same. So through this, you can easily check when will be your next renewal date. All right. So now we move on to the integrations. So currently we have seen how to create the meetings and webinars only from Zoho Meeting. And now we are going to learn what are all the other modules that we support Zoho Meeting as an option where you can create the meeting directly from that respective portal. So we do have integrations with other Zoho products such as CRM, bookings, campaigns, backstage, projects, connect, bookings, sprints, and Outlook. So not only the integration with Zoho products, we also support the integrations with third-party major applications. So we have already seen a Google Calendar sync with Zoho Meeting and webinars. The other one we have here is Microsoft Teams. So using the integration of Microsoft Teams, you can directly connect with the people from your Teams channel. And the integration of Zoho Meeting with Slack, you can start the online meeting using the simple Slack commands provided on the Slack workspace. Now, moving back to the homepage of Zoho Meeting, at the top, you will have a download icon where you can download the desktop app right from here. So through the desktop app, you can overcome the browser limitation and enjoy the session with better stability and optimization. And we also have the third-party integration of Outlook. The Zoho Meeting plugin for Microsoft Outlook can be downloaded from here, where you will have an option to start the meetings directly from your Outlook account. All right. So now we are going to see the other features that are being handled in our development phase. The first one we are going to see for the webinar module. We are going to launch the chat option between the organizer and the co-organizers very soon. Similar to meeting, we are developing the whiteboard option to annotate during the webinar. Now, let's see the features which are being handled in the meeting module. We are in the process of developing the private chat option and also the waiting room option. Moreover, we are working on to support pin video and spotlight and also play the video files in the screen sharing. Now, it's time for some Q&As. Please ask your questions and we have a person here to clarify your queries. In today's session, we have seen how to organize the webinar and conduct an online meeting using Zoho Meeting application. Kindly let us know if you have any questions about any of the features that I have mentioned today. In the meanwhile, we are also going to see some of the frequently asked questions and the answers related to it. So here's the first question that is about how to annotate during the meeting. So the answer is both the presenter and the participants can share the whiteboard through which you can annotate, draw, and sketch. And here comes the second question that is about customized background during the session. So the answer is you can also apply custom backgrounds during your online meeting and webinar, and also apply effects to the video feed. Here comes the last question that is about security and privacy in online sessions. The answer is Zoho Meeting is absolutely secure because the tool offers multiple security features to keep your meetings safe from disruption. Because we have already seen how to lock your meetings, and also we have password protected meetings. Besides, it also encrypts the audio, video, and screen sharing in order to keep the information safe during the session. Hope you all have explored and enjoyed this webinar. And I believe the demonstration that I gave in this webinar is very useful for you. Here you can share your experience in our Facebook, LinkedIn, and also in our Twitter profile. If you have any further clarification, please do not hesitate to reach us at support@zohomeeting.com.